Four, three, two, one. Hello, Matt. Welcome to our podcast. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me today.
We haven't seen each other since 2021, right?
That was a crazy, crazy year.
Yeah, it was actually because a lot of things, Vedar and I, we've been for those who don't know, who are listening right now. Vedar and I have been in YLP. That's a short for Youth Leadership Program, and we were in student exchange program, and that's how we met Joseph, right?
That's exactly right. We were
And
thrilled to have you guys here. We had the program running, and then the pandemic came, and we had to pause.
yeah,
But you all
yeah,
came and made it work, and we were thrilled to see you.
yeah, we had a lot of there was a lot of stuff that was going on, a lot of fun stuff. Yeah, and Vedar and I know you, but Faris don't know you, so I'm sure that he has a lot of questions to ask you.
Well,
I
since
look
I was
forward
never
to it.
in the USA and I was never to the West, I have a lot of questions about the differences between living in Bosnia and living in the West. So, could you explain how is it like living in the West? What are the main differences there?
That's a good question, and that's one that I get a lot whenever I come to Beja too, because a lot of people haven't had the chance to travel to the US. So I get that question a lot. I will start, if I could, in a little different way. I think the thing that I've found out from going back and forth between Beja and the US for over 20 years now is that the the basic things are all the same. I mean, people live, they work, they have families. Uh, the basic things that you would expect from normal life are the same, and I think that's a message that's good for people to hear now, when so much of what we hear in the news is people trying to make people feel like others or foreigners or something different, when a good message to start off with is that really people are just people. So that said, some of the differences, there are many, and some are funny and some are substantive. One of the ones that I always think is funny, and it's a very small thing, but whenever I go to Bay Hop and I ride in a car, or uh, or I'm in even in a building, people always close the windows, even if it's warm. And when I'm riding in a car, I like to have a little breeze, and I don't understand why. My wife says there's a name for it. It starts with a P, I think. Uh,
Propu,
but there,
propu.
Propu.
it makes that appropriate. That's
Yeah,
it. She says it makes people sick. I'm like, it doesn't make me sick. I'm an
yeah.
American. You can open the window. So
You
that
know
that's
what's
one that
funny?
always cracks me up.
Yeah, you know what's funny? There isn't actually medical studies about that.
There
I
are
think
studies.
maybe, I don't know if there are any studies about that,
We
but
when we were little, like
somebody,
our
yeah,
folks would yell at us not to run outside if we had our hair wet or something like that.
yeah,
Like just
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a bad thing. Or if it's that of course, but like on a normal day, and me, I don't have to worry about wet hair. So I think I'm probably okay.
yeah.
But if there's a real study, then send it to me, because I have to admit to my
I
wife that
will.
she's right.
I will. I have to research it. I have to research it. I have to research it. Right.
In Bosnia,
Yeah, that's
Propu
funny.
and sitting on a cold floor or a stone, it's the main reason to get you sick.
Yeah,
It everything starts from
yeah,
there.
yeah.
But
See,
it's
that's a
fine.
funny one.
We know how to handle
But
it.
you can, that's good. But some of the more serious things that I've noticed the differences are, uh, you know, here there is a really huge difference in people's income. So you have the few that make a whole bunch of money, that have all the luxuries, and you have an increasing number of people at the other end of the spectrum that don't. They don't have basics even. In Beja, when I first started going there, it was exactly the opposite. There was almost nobody in that top percentage. Almost everybody was in sort of a center or sort of a middle. Now I've seen that change
Really?
over the last few years, where there's a growing class of folks who are at the top, but still, people are much more equal as far as what they make and how they live in Beja than in the U.S. And I really like that. That's something I like about Beja's economy. Maybe not how it got like that, but the result is that
Mhm.
there's more equality of opportunity, and there's much less, uh, I don't know, much less of the top 1 or 2 or 5% taking everything. Now, like I said, I think it's probably changing a little bit the last few years. But that's the difference that I've seen. Are those the sorts of things you want me to talk about? These differences, or different kind of
Yeah,
differences?
yeah, that's it basically. You said
I would.
the economical state here. We can talk
Mhm.
about it because Teshan is a really, people call it the economical wonder of Beja, because most of the major companies are based in Teshan and they come from the city. So most of the people that live in Teshan are employed in these major companies, and you can say that everybody is pretty much living a fine life. There's nobody that's at the bottom. I mean, if there is, it's a really low percentage of people, but they still get taken care of.
That's really good. And well, actually, you can probably tell me. I know there's food production and some agriculture, some food processing, but what else is in Tishan?
The leader in oil is in
Yeah.
Teshan.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
fuel pump leader in Beja is based in Teshan. The
Wow.
meat industry maker is also based in Teshan. There's a lot of strong firms that are based here that make up that pretty much build the city economics, and for just not for the city
Yeah.
but for the
I would
whole
say
country.
something. I would like to say something. I think this is a right statistic. It is a right statistics. I heard that every ninth truck is exported from Teshan. Every ninth truck, every ninth Beha truck is actually from Teshan that is exporting some stuff in other countries. I think that is true. I heard about, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, it's really a mix of everything, you know. As Teshan is a really, let's say, isolated city, or more for now is it's a town. It's a isolated city, and people in citizens of Teshan are on their own. So we are not afraid to ask other citizen of Teshan to help us in something, you know, whether it in economic stuff or in social stuff or any other way. So that's in my opinion one of the factors why Teshan is so successful.
Well, that's great to hear. That's good news. I know from when you were here speaking to your teachers, particularly, uh, they gave a very good overview of Tishaina, how things are going with the economy. And I have to say that stands out because too often the story in Beja is the other way, that industry has gone down, exports have gone down, and there are problems. Hey, if I
Yeah,
could, I feel like I should explain Eldar why I have a patch under my eye. If
yeah,
people
of
are
course.
watching, I don't know
Yeah,
if
of
they're
course.
I
listening,
would
just
like
in
to.
case they
Yeah,
are
I thought.
watching.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, but I thought it was rude. I thought it was
No,
rude.
I should have brought it up right away. I'm a city commissioner for the city of Dayton, and
Yeah.
one of the programs we have in the summertime is we go out, all five of us commissioners, and we go to different neighborhoods and join a neighborhood picnic. Picnic. It's like a
Yeah, all
eating
right.
outside
Yeah,
with the
picnic.
neighbors. Yeah, picnic. So we went to a picnic on Tuesday night, and some of the kids were playing basketball in the park. So because I love basketball, I went to play, and we got to shooting, and then we played a little bit. And this very young, very nice kid gave me an elbow right in the cheek, and I had to get 5 stitches. I don't even know how
Ooh.
can I say stitches.
Uh,
Shavavish.
shove up. Yeah,
Schnapp? How do you
shove up.
spell it?
uh
Uh,
Shavovi.
Shovelby. Yeah,
Yeah.
Pit
yeah,
Shovelby.
exactly.
Pit
Yes.
Shovelby.
Yeah,
Imam. So that's why I have a
yeah,
bandage, and that's why if you see my eye, it's a little bit dark.
Yeah.
yeah. I was going to ask you, but I thought it was rude. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask Vedat something. What was your favorite moment when we were in America, and what was the
Oh.
first thing that you that 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 was odd in America, let's say?
Yeah. So I think the thing that I most remember was the first time meeting Matt there. I think we had a chance to meet a lot of popular places in Dayton that are pretty much the places which pretty much represent the Bosnia there. We had a chance to visit a place. I think it's some type of a monument there for the Bosnia. I think Matt, you can talk about that a little more and explain it to us. But I really like the way that Dayton pretty much has a lot of positive things about talks about a lot of positive things about Bosnia, and that Dayton and Bosnia have a lot of connections still up to date. And The thing I remember too was our visit to the I think it was
Hope
the
Hotel.
museum. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's museum. Hope
yeah,
Hotel
the
Museum for
hotel
airports.
where all representatives from all countries were when there were like the talks about
Signing, yeah.
Dayton peace. And I think you explained it to us in the pretty good way and made it really interesting. So I think you could talk a little bit about that too uh, in the couple of minutes.
I'm glad to hear those things made an impression because the things you talk about are the things that when we have groups come, I always hope to get them on the schedule. And I work with our staff at the city so that we can make sure that you all get a chance to see those things. The monument you're talking about is the Holbrook Memorial. We call it Holbrook Plaza. And when Richard Holbrook, Ambassador Holbrook, passed away, we made the plaza next to the river, looking over the city on a really nice site. As you remember, it's a nice place to take pictures. And we put the American flag and the Beja flag and some plaques commemorating that Holbrook led the talks and that Dayton and Beja are forever connected. So I really love that site.
Yeah, and as I can remember, there were some bronze plates there that are transported all the way from Bosnia. And I think you told us about some problems you had with those plates.
Actually, the bronze plates we made in Dayton. But underneath, if you remember, underneath those bronze plates are stones from
Yeah,
Beja.
Yeah,
yeah,
So there's the
stones,
stones
yeah,
from
yeah.
stones.
Stadimost. There's the stones from three different places that were significant in the war and in peace, of course. They signify rebuilding. So yeah, getting the stones over here was interesting because they're heavy. And it takes a little time to get them, takes a little time to figure out what we're gonna do, but they're still there. The stones are there, and I think just the symbolism of having a piece of the vijećnica from Sarajevo, a city hall from a little town north of Banja Luka that was shelled and rebuilt, and then of course a piece of the Stadimost, of the original Stadimost. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that it's there ensconced in the wall for all to see, right there in the city of Dayton. You have a good memory.
I wanted to ask you, could I ask you something? It's an interesting
Yeah.
question. How much about Dayton Peace Agreement? No, how many Dayton citizens know about Dayton Peace Agreement today?
It's a good question. The answer is fewer and fewer. Just
Oh,
you all weren't even born when it was
yeah,
signed, right? And so there's a
right.
lot of Dayton residents who weren't born when it was signed, and as the population ages, fewer and fewer people remember. I think if you talk to someone my age, I'm 51, probably there's a good chance they would remember it. We were in our early 20s at the time. But anybody younger than me, probably not. If somebody was in high school or somebody was in grade school, but so it depends on
And
the generation.
yeah, what was it like when it was you were 20 at that time? What was it like? What was Dayton like at when it was signing, when there was negotiations?
That's a good question. It was not that much different than today. We were at that time in the 90s. We were in the middle of having a lot of our jobs go to China, go to Mexico. So we had factories closing and people losing jobs. Especially in our auto industry. We were at one time one of the biggest producers of automotive parts and cars. We produce cars here too, and that all left, or almost all left, and all at once. So, uh, between the early 70s and the end of the 90s, it was tough times for Dayton. We have the Air Force Base here. We have other industries, so it didn't kill us, but there were tough times.
Yeah.
So in the middle 90s, I think we were okay. The city, the downtown itself was hurting because so many companies had left. In the 30 years since then, it's changed. You saw a vibrant downtown with plenty of places to eat. You stayed in a hotel right next to the river. There were plenty of things
Yeah.
to do. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like that 30 years ago. The turnaround was yet to come. So I think the city itself has seen major improvements since then. And sometimes, if you read about what people said, people from Beja or Serbia or the UN, what they said about Dayton in those days when they came over. They talk about how the downtown was quiet. It's a small town in the middle of nowhere. And I think partially that's because it was a downtime for the city of Dayton. But happily, we
Okay.
recovered.
Yeah, okay. And you can you explain to the listeners why the Dayton was chosen to to sign this peace agreement? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great topic. I've learned from talking to the diplomats who were there and also from reading Richard Holbrooke's book and others that there were some interesting reasons. So, uh, the the base here, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, was chosen as the site over a number of other sites. The reasons were because they had the facilities, they had like hotels and places for people to stay. They had rooms and apartments for everyone, and not every base has that. You have to have nice rooms for politicians and presidents coming. Uh, they were here. Here we are in Dayton. We're 1 hour flight from New York, a 1 hour flight from Washington, or a little less. And they wanted it to be close enough that diplomats could fly back and forth, and our staffers, or if the president would want to come from Washington, or somebody from the State Department, or somebody from the UN. So it's an easy 1 hour flight. It is an Air Force base, so it's easy to defend. There are plenty of people around. If there's any trouble, the fences are there. So having it on an Air Force base was important. And one final thing that I always enjoy is that they wanted people, because of the method of the negotiation, which is they wanted people to be isolated. So they didn't want there to be a ton of people around. They didn't want it to be in New York or Paris or somewhere like that, which would be, it's easy to access media. It's easy to access, uh, anybody. And so they
Yeah,
wanted to
I get it.
isolate people a little bit. And that was necessary because what the kind of negotiation they did was they had people in rooms, basically, or separated a little bit, and then US and European diplomats went room to room to room with different proposals. So there was very little face to face. You can understand, coming out of the war, how that would be a tough strategy to
Yeah.
do face to face negotiation. So they did it. They went room to room to room and back and forth, shuttle negotiations, but shuttle negotiations right on the military base, so right there. So it was a good setup for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just came up with a question. It's been, I don't know how much do you follow the situation right now in Bosnia?
I do. I was just
Yeah.
there 3 weeks ago.
Oh, oh, really?
I
Really?
was. We visit my
Yeah.
in-laws, my wife's family.
Yeah. Where is she from? Mostar, right?
She's originally from Konjic. They call that
Oh,
the E in
Konjic.
Beja. She's from Konjic, but her family lives in Mostar now, in Rashtani, northern of the
Konjic,
city.
yeah, Konjic so underrated. In my
Can I
opinion, one of
ask,
the
how
yeah.
did the two of you meet? Since you're
We
from
met at
America.
University of Dayton. That's a good
Oh,
question. She came during the war. The U.S. State Department offered scholarships for people who were going to be teachers, who were studying to be teachers, who were studying to be judges and lawyers. And she was studying to be a teacher, so she came for a year, and we met. We were friends. We didn't date. We were friends, so that was nice. And then she went back to Beja, and I went on a business trip to Beja to interview people from a different program. And I stopped to visit, and then boom, just like lightning, it hit. So then we started long distance, and eventually she came here to get her master's at a university in Dayton. Then we got married. So yeah,
oh,
it's a good story.
Nice.
It's a miracle.
It's a really good story. Yeah, yeah, it is. And did you have a wedding in Bosnia?
Oh, I did. We had a great wedding. Legendary.
And did you
It
have
was amazing.
yeah, did you have second one in the USA?
We went to the judge here in the U.S. just because of immigration
Okay.
purposes. We had to do a legal one
All right.
here, and then we went and had a church wedding, and then a whole big reception and all night in the band in Beja.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. We did have a reception
Yeah.
back here for the people in my family who couldn't go over, who weren't able to travel. But it was good, but it wasn't anything like the wedding there. Nothing.
Yeah.
Is there a big
Yeah.
difference between American and Bosnian weddings?
Oh yeah.
I know
I
Bosnians make
yeah.
a big celebration and everything. How's it in the US?
You know, every celebration is joyful, right? Every wedding is a lot of fun, and it's an awesome celebration. But you all do it the best in the world, as far as I know. You do it right.
Thank you.
We
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Mr.
our
Matt.
weddings end at midnight. You know, we don't often anymore have a live band. It used to be 30 years ago you always had a live band, but maybe 40 years ago. But now mostly it's a DJ.
Yeah.
But you all usually maybe a live band. The food is incredible and it keeps coming. You know,
Of course.
every hour or so there's another course, every hour and a half. The dancing is great. The wedding locations are even nicer. I mean, really nice wedding locales,
Oh,
wedding halls.
I didn't accept that. I didn't expect that. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean,
Because I
ours
don't
are
know, in
okay.
USA you have, yeah, I mean in America you have more options to have a wedding at. I don't
I
know.
know, but for
It's just
whatever reason, I went to a wedding. One of my wife's cousins got married about 3 weeks ago, and when I was there in Beja, so
oh,
we went to a wedding there, and it's a beautiful location. It was a wedding in Mostar. It has a hall, and next to it there's a little creek running through it, and a nice place to walk, and some historic things, and even the hall itself is beautiful inside.
nice.
It's just amazing,
Nice.
really. I
Yeah,
love it. I would not have
yeah.
missed that wedding.
I didn't
That's
expect that. Yeah, yeah.
that's
Thank you so
really
much
nice
for
to
that.
hear.
Yeah, and
So
I
when
want
you
to go
guys
back.
get married, I expect you to invite me. You hear me?
Of
Yeah,
course,
of
of
course, of
course,
course,
of course.
of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I will go back to the more serious topics about Bosnia. So you are following right now the situation in Bosnia.
Yeah,
It
I am.
has been, I don't know how much years, 27, 28 years from the Dayton peace agreement. In your opinion, do we have to upgrade, let's say upgrade the Dayton peace agreement right now?
Oh, there's no doubt
Because
about it.
yeah, because most of the politicians think that the Dayton peace agreement from the 1995 is was a temporary solution for the Bosnian Herzegovina. Do we have to upgrade it right now? And
Oh,
what
no
do we
doubt
have to
about it.
upgrade?
Yep, that's a good question. And Vidad, you may remember when we were at the Hope Hotel here in Dayton, I talked about how uh, on the U.S. side, the negotiators, they planned for this to be a 5-year solution, the
Yeah,
Dayton
yeah,
Peace Agreement, and that it would be replaced after just a few years. So you can imagine 30 years later, this 5-year agreement
yeah,
is it's just not working. It was not designed to be a permanent solution. It was only designed to be temporary. So yes, it really needs to be overhauled. Um, the question is, who's going to lead that overhaul, right? You have, I think, some folks in the country now that if they led the overhaul, it would take us back to some sort of bad results, right? It would split the country. It would divide people. It may even lead to war if some people got what they wanted. What we need is a concerted effort to bring people together to write a constitution that's good for all the people of Beja, the entire country. And that's not easy to do, right? That we've been trying for a long time. And if you have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them because it's a bad situation. There's no doubt about it.
yeah. We have to study about that topic right now. Um, Honestly, and I'm a little bit ashamed of this. I don't know that much about the Dayton peace agreement. Most of the things that I learn about it is from you, actually.
Ah,
And yeah, 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 it is. And I have to really study about it. And that's why we invited you to this podcast to see Americans' view on this, on our country and everything else. Um, Next question I would like to ask you. It's I think it's mostly yes or no question, but you can answer it more deeply. Is it absurd for a country to have three presidents?
and that goes back to what we were just talking about, right? If it's a temporary solution, if it was an agreement to end a war and it was only going to last for a couple years, then absolutely, to stop people killing people, you can have 5 presidents or 7, but it's certainly not a viable permanent solution. It's just not. So that's yes, it's a crazy thing.
I don't know how much do you. I don't know how much do you also follow the Ukrainian war situation. Will there be any Dayton like or any in any city peace agreement for that? And what do you think was the solution for them?
It's a good question. Yeah, I'm following it really closely, of course. I think that the experience that we've seen, the experience that you all have had as citizens of Beja, you can see the dangers of negotiated peace, right? There, obviously, you want to negotiate a peace, but you want to do it the right way. So, uh, I think that the experience that the world has had watching how things have happened in Beja over the last 30 years, if there are peace talks, that would help guide what the final resolution would be. But I will say that the easiest way for there to be peace in Ukraine is for the country that started the war to go home. So that's the easiest way. I mean, if the country that started the war would go home, then there's no need for anything. It's we're done. We're done. The borders are back, and we're done. So I firmly think that's the best result. So I don't expect peace talks of any sort. Well, I can't say that. I mean, I know they're exchanging prisoners, so there are always some talks and some discussions, and that's okay. But I don't think there is going to be a Dayton type talks for a while, if at all. And like I said, the best possible solution is they just stop fighting and go home, which would be the easiest and the most just way to end the war.
Yeah, and something that is similar to Bosnian War. Joe Biden actually, when he was what was he or senator or commissioner, right?
Senator,
When he
yeah.
was when he was senator, he was talking a lot about a lot of about Bosnian War
Mhm.
at that time, and right now he's also helping with Ukrainians. He's sending a lot of military stuff in Ukraine right now.
He is. Actually, when he was a senator, he came here to Dayton. I think it was the second year after the Accords, and he gave a really good speech at the Hope Hotel, the same place where we
Yeah,
visited. He was there at the commemorations a couple years after the. It may have been the year after. It was really quickly right after he was here in Dayton speaking, and he said the right things, and he did the right things during the war too. He was right in a lot of ways. He was right about supplying arms. He was right about what the outcome should be and what the U.S. should do. And I remain hopeful that as president, we're gonna do some good things in Beja. I know that last week there was some news about more sanctions against different leaders who have been trying to break the country apart, and that's good. I'm glad about that because I think that hitting people in their wallet is a very good way to start to crack down. And I know this is probably a later question, but since we're on this topic now, I will say that hitting people on the wallet is also a good way to start to crack down on corruption, which is another problem that I've seen in Beja, which is it drives me insane because it should not happen. It's not right, and it just rips people. It rips money from the people who need it the most. It's just
yeah,
it's terrible.
yeah.
It's ins-
That's one of the bigger problem in Bosnia, corruption and nepotism. And I don't know. I feel like we as a country we were built on those things, if you know what I mean. Um, because of the because of the Slovenian wars, you know. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I think we as young people we should stand up against that. I don't know. Yeah. I
I
think
like how
Vedar
you
and
said.
Pars also.
I,
Yeah.
I like how you said that hitting the people in charge in their wallet is the best way to. I completely agree. It's their weak spot. It's their Achilles foot. It just drives them insane. I think that's the best way we should go into upgrading Dayton, if you can say it like that.
It's a good first step, right? If we can manage somehow to reduce the level of corruption, reduce the ability of those in power to make money for themselves off of government, you know, stuff or government issues, then it becomes less urgent for them to stay in power through whatever means, and you can have a more democratic and a better government, more of a democratic society, better people leading.
How much of corruption and nepotism is there in America?
You know, people are people, so there's always some. There's always some. But we have much greater transparency. One example is I'm a city commissioner for the city of Dayton. That's like a gradsky vijećnik, right?
Yeah,
Gradsky vijećnik.
Yeah, yeah.
And if I get a gift that's over $75 of any kind, I have to report it on an annual report. So I keep a list, and everybody, it's a public list, so everybody can see exactly what it is. And every official in the state of Ohio follows those rules. So any gift of any amount, you have to list and keep a list of it, and then people can see if somebody would give me, like, a company that's trying to do business with the city that's trying to win a contract. I'd have to disclose it, and then I go to jail because you're not allowed to do business. You're not allowed to take gifts from those companies. And if I didn't disclose it, then I would go to jail too if somebody found out about the gift. So it's a good system. It's very solid.
Yeah, it is.
And so there's it's good to have transparency, and we do that well here. So it's harder to get around. So
I think Bosnian citizens would react like, isn't that a little bit too much petty? If you know what I mean, it's $75. It isn't that much, but it is actually great system, and I wish we had that system too. You said that you are a city commissioner, right, in Dayton. For how much years have you been doing that job?
Actually, at the end of the year, it'll be 20 years total.
Oh,
Nice.
5 4-year terms. I'm actually running right now for election. So if you know any people in Dayton, tell them to vote for me.
Okay.
will do.
Okay. Okay.
How does a day in the life of Mr. Matt Joseph look like as the Dayton City Commissioner?
That's actually I'll tell you, but the reason that's a very good question, Fadis, is that's another reason why we have better transparency here is, as a city commissioner is just a part-time job. So I have a regular job. I'm a logistics engineer. So I do that during the daytime, and then I do city work in the evenings or at lunchtime or at weekends. So my regular workday is a workday like anybody else's. Just one time a week, I go to City Hall for a few hours, and we have budget meetings, and I meet with residents. I talk to our staff about whatever projects are going on, if there are roads being paved or problems with the trash pickup or whatever it might be, future planning, new businesses coming. And then we have our commission meeting where we vote on things. And then I usually take one of my kids to soccer practice or volleyball practice or something, and then I collapse into bed.
Yeah.
The one thing I really remember when we were in the city hall is that on your meetings, one thing that really I do like is that any citizen can pretty much, as I remember, go there and talk about anything he wants. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's another good American thing, I think. At our meetings, any citizen can come and speak for 3 minutes on whatever topic they want to talk about. And a lot of times it's people who are mad at us about something, which is good for us to hear. Maybe there's been a big hole in the street, a pothole for too long in front of their house, and they're really angry. And maybe they call and they didn't get it, nothing happened. So they come to the meeting and they're angry. And then we say, okay, we'll figure out a way to take care of it. But you did see they can say whatever they want for 3 minutes. So it's a good freedom of speech thing. And it's good for us to hear directly from residents. And I think that's a piece that maybe you all could push. I mean, when you're city commissioners, or you could put other people, when other people become city commissioners, hold them accountable. When someone makes a complaint about too much noise, or a house that's falling over and needs to be taken down, or potholes or bad trash pickup, if somebody makes a complaint, make sure that you hold your representatives or your council people accountable. They're responsible for fixing that problem. Follow up with them, call them, go visit them until it gets done. Keep bothering them. That's what our residents do here, and that's why I'm elected. That's why I get paid, to hear those complaints and fix them. Right. And I think that connection hasn't quite been made yet in Bayha, that residents have the right to go and demand changes. And maybe that you can't demand everything and get everything, but you can demand fixes for things that should happen. You know, fixes, things that are broken should be fixed. Sidewalks should be fixed. Roads should be in good shape. Trash should be picked up. The very basic things. Water should be, you know, good quality water. Like all these basic things should be taken care of, and residents have the right to demand that. And politicians like me should be able to fix those and answer that, right? So
Yeah.
hold, that's on you. You hold them
Yeah,
accountable, right?
it is. Yeah, it is on us. It is on us. Yeah. I would like to ask, what is the biggest problem going on right now in Dayton?
That's a good
It can
question.
be it can be social problem, it can be economic problem, problem with youth, a problem with elder people, etc. Any kind of problem that it is stuck in your mind for the longest right now.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think I have to give two. There's not just one. It's there are two, and they're interrelated. We are a city that, like I said, over the last 40 or 50 years, a lot of businesses left. We had car companies leave, so we lost a lot of jobs. Over the last 10 years, jobs have started to come back, really started to come back, and the city is looking much better. But we still have quite a few people who don't have jobs. And there's a way too high level of poverty here in the city. And increasing, sort of adding to that, and why I say I have to say two problems, is that for years and years, African Americans, Black people, were discriminated against in a lot of ways. They weren't allowed to buy houses in certain parts of the city. They were discriminated against as where they could go to school, where they could get jobs, the type of jobs they could get.
I have to cut you for a little bit. When you were speaking about African Americans, can you explain what redlining is
Yeah.
for the
I
people
was
who
going to
don't
talk
know?
about that. That's great.
Okay.
Um, so during redlining, during the 50s and 60s, up until and probably continuing through the 60s, uh, there was a practice called redlining, and literally a red line. So banks would look at a map of the city, and they would draw a red line around areas where African Americans were not allowed to buy houses. They weren't allowed to take a loan out, a mortgage loan, so they could buy a house. So there are whole parts of the city where they weren't allowed to buy a house, and they had to buy a house in the maybe the less nice part of the city, or a different district of the city. Now that meant that the parts of the city that were outlined as African American parts usually weren't as nice. And even today, even though the practice ended in the 70s, even today, those parts of the city aren't doing as well. So we, as a city, we're spending a ton of more money there to try to fix it up. So we're knocking down old houses, we're putting in new sidewalks, we're putting in bike paths and trees and redoing the parks because of the decision that was made in the 40s and 50s to segregate the city. And we're having to work really hard and spend a lot of money to undo that. But the effects of that redlining are still felt today. So we are, and that's what I was going to get to, is that the combined uh, the economic problems that the city had and the continuing effects of segregated city as it was, are they're hard. They're hard to overcome, and it took 50 years to get where we were, and it's going to take 50 years probably to fix the problems too. We've started, and we'll continue doing it, but I'd say those two problems are the biggest we face
All
right
right.
now.
Um, what are the probable solutions for those problems?
Oh, you have to try everything. You have to
Yeah.
make sure that people have good education. You have to make sure that people are trained for jobs. You have to make sure that we're hiring people at the city who look like our residents, right? We have a fair share of African Americans and Asian folks and everybody. We have to have everybody on city staff and be a good example. We have to make sure that our businesses aren't discriminating against anybody. We have to make sure that our neighborhoods are friendly for everyone, and we have to spend money to make sure that the parts of the city, like I said, the parts of the city that were neglected for so long, that they're fixed up. And we are. We're trying all those things. In fact, I think we're making good progress. We put out a city survey, I think it was 2 years ago now, that asked How would you feel about an immigrant living next door to you? And something like 79 or 80% of our residents said they would be perfectly happy with that. And that made me feel really good, especially right now where immigrants are made to seem like terrible people. And like in Europe and in here, that everybody's trying to put immigrants to the side. Oh, they're terrible, taking jobs, blah blah blah. But I think the message that we're talking about of making Dayton a welcoming place for everybody, including immigrants, I think it's sinking in a little bit. So I was really happy to see that. But that said, it took us 50 years to get in that deep hole. It's going to take us 50 years to get out of the hole. So there's a lot of work ahead of us.
Good job, nice job. How much Dayton City has an impact on the whole state of Ohio?
It's a good question. We are the third biggest metropolitan area. So there's I'm not. That's not right. We're the fourth biggest. So you all, did you guys go to Columbus or Cincinnati when you were here? I can't remember.
Our
You
teacher
had a,
did. Our teachers did. Yeah,
they
but
did. They
we
went to
didn't.
Columbus.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was pandemic time. You guys didn't travel much. So
Yeah.
the three biggest cities in the state are Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. You may or may not have heard some of those names.
Yeah.
We're the fourth biggest metropolitan area. The city itself, we're only 140,000 people, but the metropolitan area is a lot bigger. Uh, depending on how you count, maybe 800, 900,000, maybe a million people. So Dayton is a big region. You got to see some of the suburbs. I know you went shopping, and so we have the city and we have huge suburbs all around us.
Yeah.
So the Dayton region is actually important. We lead in engineering, we lead in healthcare, we lead in education. We have excellent schools here. We lead in transportation. We have two major highways that come through the city. There's Route 70 that goes across and Route 75 that goes north and south. Route 75 goes from Michigan to Florida, all the way up and down the country. Route 70 goes from New York and east, well, actually Baltimore and east, all the way to Denver. So that's why we have a lot of trucking companies, because you can get almost anywhere in the country from here really easily. We are still a base of manufacturing, although it's less than it was a few years ago. So we make a lot of things here, and that makes me feel good. And on top of that, outside of the the urban area and the suburbs, we have plenty of farmland. So we produce corn and soybeans and wheat and all kinds of things like that around here that we process here, we ship it, we feed the country. So the region's pretty important. So for a small city, we do okay.
I want to talk about the recent events in America right now. America had actually Congress hearing on aliens, and it's a really funny thing in Bosnia, because I don't know if this is a hot take or something, but America is so good as a country that you have no things to complain about. So you have to complain about aliens. I don't know if this is true, but that's my perspective. How do you comment on that?
You're right. You're right. I think, yeah, aliens. It's interesting. Uh, I think over these last 70, 80 years since people started flying into space, traveling into space on rockets, there's some speculation about aliens, and just like with every conspiracy theory, the people are convinced there's hidden evidence somewhere. Somebody is hiding something. And I know
Yeah,
you have conspiracy theories in Bayha too. You guys are good at them. But
yeah,
so aliens, for after all these years, people are convinced some people are convinced that there's some evidence somewhere that's hiding. So uh, you know, I I can't see where it harms anything. It seems
yeah,
silly. But I don't know. I will say that after I watched some of the hearings and I read some of the articles, it seems like, especially some of the things that American fighter pilots caught on video, like it was actual military plane,
yeah,
military video, it wasn't made up, are hard to explain. So I'll be
yeah,
curious. We'll someday we'll figure out what it was. If it was aliens, interesting. If it wasn't aliens, interesting. But I think those kind of things that don't have an explanation, that's what gives fuel to this. If it was easy to say, yup, it was weather balloons or it was, Russian drones or whatever, then that's the easy
yeah,
solution or easy answer. But those things that they saw, nobody knows what they are yet. So we'll see. If I'm skeptical that there are aliens. If there were aliens, where are they? You know, there
Yeah,
are
I'm
cameras
I'm
everywhere.
skeptical. Yeah, I'm skeptical too because I haven't seen any not fake evidence from Europe or anywhere other in the world that it is not fake. Only in America. I don't know if I don't
I
know.
think
Yeah,
I think that Hollywood plays a big part in the alien conspiracy theories and Area 51 and everything. To us as children, Area 51, I mean, from Bosnia to us in children, Area 51 was like this sacred place where aliens are kept and they're being tested and everything. It
No
always was
kidding.
fun to, it was always fun to gather information on YouTube or wherever about that, and even in movies and everything. It was really
and that's
interesting.
that. Yeah, that's what is good about America. Congress and every politician is open to everything, even aliens, and that's very interesting. And I can bet a very good amount of money that if we have a Congress hearing on aliens or something like that, I don't know if that would happen in any time soon. You know, it's
I
really
don't
interesting.
know.
That's what, yeah, that's what I like America. That's what I like America about. You know, the First Amendment, the free speech. Am I right? That's something that Americans appreciate so much, and you cannot go to jail if you say something that someone else is not agreeing about, and that's really I call that the beauty of the difference. You know, since here in Bosnia we have a lot of different people with technical backgrounds, but that's here that's the problem here. And in America you can have really different political aspects, and people will still live with each other and not make war about that.
I will say that yes, you're right, of course, and that's something that I think that no society is ever that fight is never complete, right? I mean, you have to make sure you're careful to include people because human nature wants to separate people out into us and them, my people and your people, right? So you have to be watchful all the time. But we do okay here. We just have to stay watchful. And even in Beja, even in the midst of all this, so many times I've seen people reach across ethnic boundaries. Neighbors are still friends. Doesn't matter what they believe or what they look like. They celebrate weddings together. They celebrate holidays, whatever holidays there are. They
Yeah,
celebrate them together. So I think on a personal level, it's still there. It's still there in Beja. But the problem
it is.
is that politicians, they use those fissures, they use those cracks and human nature to try to drive people apart and make money for themselves and keep themselves out of jail. So that's they use human nature in that way and try to drive through those cracks and make them wider. But I think if people are just left alone with their neighbors, I think that things are
Yeah,
going to be okay.
I can definitely agree. It is sad that some of politicians are using ethnicity. I hate those words so much, but ethnicity, religions as a tool to fight, and it's really sad. Religion is something to be is supposed to be something to
On a
represent some
personal level.
peace. Yeah, and personal level. But yeah, I would like to ask you one more questions. You said that you were working for 20 years as a city commissioner, right? And what was the proudest thing that you have done for Dayton?
Oh boy. That's a hard question. I've done some things
Oh,
I'm proud of in these 20 years. Can I give two or three?
Sure,
of course, yeah,
sure, of
All
course.
right.
of course.
Well, I'll say the first thing is that I helped create the Welcome Dayton Committee, and that is a committee that welcomes immigrants and refugees to the city and tries to integrate them into life here. So I'm really proud of that. We did it. Me and my colleagues worked on it 10 years ago, and it's growing. I think you guys heard a little bit about it when you were here, and I'm really
Yeah.
proud of the Welcome Dayton. Second thing I'm very proud of is after a few years ago, there was you guys remember a few years ago, uh, a man named George Floyd was shot in St. Louis, and it started uh, demonstrations, and a rethinking of relations between the races here in the U.S. And as a response to that, we put together committees of citizens to look at how we treat people. And I led with a friend of mine, the two of us co-led uh, the committee that looked at police oversight, like who's watching over the police, and how do people make complaints about the police. So we worked for a year, more than a year, with a committee of residents, including police and activists, and everyone together, and it was wild, it was crazy, but we came up with a better way. We have an easier way for people to make complaints. We have a more transparent path for the complaint to go through to be investigated, and we have a better way to know what the outcome is, so that people know what happened. People have a chance to explain what problem they might have, and then we at the city and the police know what we could do differently, what we should do differently in the future to avoid that problem happening again. I'm really proud of that. It took a lot to bring police and protesters and everybody else together. That was tough, but I enjoyed it, and I'm really happy with how it's working. It's working better now. It really is.
Nice.
That's really
And
good
there's
to
other
hear.
stuff too. We'll say
Yeah.
those. I will say one more if I could have a third,
Okay.
and that is
Yeah, of
when I
course, of
came into
course.
office, the city, the recovery hadn't become firm yet. It maybe had just started, maybe not quite. So the city was still in bad shape. But over these 20 years, we've really come back. We've paid attention to, we cut spending on a million things, but we kept the services there. People still get their trash picked up. They still, police come when they call. Fire service is fine. Water water quality is very good, and when you turn on the tap, the water comes. But we have uh, here's an example. Uh, when I first started, there were almost 2,000 people working for the city in we call it our general fund budget. So that's people that, police and fire, and people that pick up trash and fix the roads, 2,000 people. Right now in our general fund budget area, there are 1,100. So we lost 900 people, but we're still providing the same services through better technology, better training. And I'm really proud of that, extremely proud, because the city was in bad shape. We were losing money, losing revenue, but we kept everything running. We made the city cleaner and safer. And now people are moving back in. Businesses are coming back.
Wow.
Just like you saw, the
Wow.
downtown is thriving.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah. Good job. Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. That's really inspiring.
Can it
Um.
get stressful to balance, since you're working in logistics and you're a city commissioner? Can it get stressful to balance work and life? How do you do it?
Yes, it can. That's a very insightful question. It can. Uh, but there are benefits to being a regular employee, like a regular worker, and also being a politician. We say it keeps me grounded, right? I have a good view of what workers face because I am one. I have a boss. He has a boss, you know? So it keeps me grounded in a way that if I was a full-time politician, I wouldn't have that to fall back on, that keeps me grounded, keeps my mind in the right place. I realize what people go through. So I can't complain. It is stressful. Uh, but it's okay. I don't do it. Obviously, I don't do it for the money. It's part-time. But I do it because I love it. I love the chance to try to fix things and help people. And having the city do well now, it makes me feel really good about my decision to run all those years ago and to keep running now.
That's
This
really
maybe.
good to hear.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
when you
Sorry,
do
fast.
something because you love something and not for the money, it makes you obviously better at the job. You do
Yeah.
it with empathy, with passion. That's nice to hear.
Speaking of
Yeah.
that, are you guys planning on running, any of the three of you?
What did you say?
Well,
Are you planning on running for office, any of you?
I don't know. I don't know. For now,
It's hard to say now.
right now, hey, it's hard to say right now. I'm on university right now studying. I'm not thinking about that, you know. But maybe I
maybe
don't
in
know.
the later
Maybe. Yeah.
Keep it in the back
Yeah.
of your
Why
mind.
not?
We need good people
Of
like you
course.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. We were on the YLP for the reason, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. Leaders is
Yeah.
in the title.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. Maybe this a little bit off topic. What is your educational background?
I got well, I went to high school here in Dayton, at Carroll High School, where my son is going now, which is nice.
Oh,
And then I went to the University of Dayton. That's where I met Irena. I got my bachelor's degree there, and I got my master's degree from George Washington University in D.C. in Washington. And I was there. Actually, I was there to go to school, but I also worked as an intern on Capitol Hill for Congressman Tony Hall, and that's after a few months as an intern, they hired me full time, and that's how I got started in politics. I was a staffer for the congressman.
oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And I don't know if Vedad and Faris has more questions.
But
Yeah,
I don't.
I think we covered it all.
Yeah, yeah. I would like to ask one last question. For the people like Vedad, Fars, and I, we are young people. We are passionate about this website. We are passionate about changing and more, more popularize our city and our country. What is your tip? What are your tips for you young people?
That's a good question. Uh, I don't think I'm going to say anything revolutionary, right? You're doing what you need to do. You're studying hard. You're reaching out. You're talking to people, and you're learning. You're becoming leaders yourself, and that's going to make all the difference. People, people the generation before you and the generation before that, which is my generation, they've gone through tough times in Beja, really tough times. But if you're dedicated to making a change, making things more fair, making things better for people's lives, um, you have the capability to change it. Your generation really can. Eventually, you're going to be the leaders. The mayor of our city always says about youth, he says, young people right now are 20% of our population, but they are 100% of our future. And
Hmm. Oh,
it's a good
that's a good
quote.
one.
That's true.
Here you
That's
are.
a
So
good
you are
one,
going to have
actually.
100% control of the country in a few years. So you and your colleagues can make the change. So I encourage you to stay and fight, right? Stay and do the right thing. You know what the right thing is to do. When you're a leader, follow that same instinct and do the right thing. Treat people the right way and build a future for the country that people can live together and that's welcoming and people can thrive and prosper, have good jobs, raise their kids and grow old in a beautiful place. And you have a great place to do it. Beja is gorgeous. The people are great. The food is wonderful. The everything is there. Everything is there to have a wonderful, inclusive, prosperous country. You see it. I see it. And your generation can do that. And I will help as long as I'm still alive. So whatever you need
Thank you
from
so
me, you can
much.
count on
Thank
me.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
you
This
so
was a
much.
great podcast. Thank you, Matt, so much for being a guest here. Thank you for accepting the invite. And if you come to Teschen or in Sarajevo, let us know.
I will, and you guys are welcome in Dayton anytime. You know that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maybe next time we will do in real life podcast.
That sounds great. Let's count on it.
That would be amazing.
Hello.
Yeah, we'll see you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt,
Okay.
for
Thank
your
you so
time.
much.
My pleasure. Bye bye.
Goodbye.